All right, guys, so today we're working on the engine just because there's been a couple problems with it. I last had it at idle for a while and then it just stalled out, and it stalled out about 2 or 3 times. It took a while for it to kind of crank. Its fuel pressure is pressurized and all that, so don't really know what it is. Kind of looked online, read through the manual, and I found a couple things I'm going to do. So my thermostat is actually the 142, so I need to get it up to 160. Replacing that, replacing the fuel filter, make sure I've got the O-rings for those, and then I'm going to check the low pressure and high pressure fuel pumps, make sure they're both charging. I do hear them, like I hear the zzz, so I just want to make sure they're both doing that and turning on, and then I'm going to clean the air filter. So a little bit of routine maintenance here, but got the normal just parts here from the factory. Here's the fuel filter, and then that one I just showed you is the thermostat, the 160. When I was troubleshooting this a long time ago, I just got a regular thermostat at like AutoZone or Riley's to see if that was another problem, but now that's not the problem. We're gonna go ahead and switch it with the right one and get it done. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So use a little bit of this, spray it on here, get it all in there, free it up, and then we'll clean it with some brake parts cleaner. Now we got the air filter all cleaned up. Actually just used the cleaning solvent, rinsed it out with water, and set it in the sun, and it dried all up. So we're just gonna go ahead and put it all back together here. Got my rubber grommet, goes on like so. Well, here's the intake. It's like sandy and dirty. Wow. Then you've got 2 1/4-inch hexes, one here and then one on the other side. So let's go ahead and loosen this side. Go ahead. Lift up. Now we've got a brand new thermostat we can go ahead and set in there. Lift it up, and it just flops right in there. Just make sure it's seated properly. There's like a little tiny rail in there. Alright, little update. Actually ended up taking the top part off because you can see this is the original gasket right here. This little lip right here is painted on, and man is it coated, and it's super thick. So we got to take this one off first, and we'll get it in. Alright, you can see there's a big giant mess. Getting that off with the Dremel. I'm going to go ahead and get a nice flat disc here and just get this nice and flat. Just like so. Alright, so now we got finally a nice clean edge down here. Go ahead and set that down. It sits in there nice and good. Go ahead and put the brand new gasket on. That took a long time to clean all that off. And then lastly, hoses on that side and the screws threaded in just a little bit. We can go ahead and get it tightened down. You can put the other hose on. Don't mind the giant waves. You got a wake surf boat that just went by. Alright, moving to the fuel filter service. I got my brand new fuel filter with my O-rings, and then I'm going to cut a couple of these open, drain the fuel into them, and then loosen this. We'll drop it down, replace it, and get her done. Alright, first things first, you can go ahead and just use a 3/16 inch hex. Get this loosened up. This is kind of a nice drain. So once you start draining it out, then it's got some air, so it's not going to take forever to drain out. Alright, moving down, you can go ahead and get our cut up water bottle, bring it down there, and then go ahead and loosen everything. Alright, so now I got the fill plug and the drain plug out. We're going ahead and getting all the fuel out of there. Actually, I just learned this. You can put the water bottle right over the drain and it perfectly goes in without a mess. That's pretty freaking nice. Alright, sometimes these fuel filters are really hard to get off. So I get one of these like mitts they use for grilling. It's got the rubber bits on it. Go ahead and wrap that around like so. And then you want to go ahead and get your clamp on there. And I did crack it loose with this, so I'm cheating a little bit, but you get the concept. So then I can't even do it with one hand, and I barely cracked it loose. Took all I had with two hands, squeezed it, and cracked it loose, so you don't have to scratch your canister too bad. Alright, so now I went ahead and got it loose. You can go ahead and get the old filter out of there. Alright, so here is the old gasket. This is the new one. It's kind of hard to see, but it goes right up there in the top part of that groove. I went ahead and brought a little bit of engine oil, so I'm going to go ahead and just lubricate it up there too, and just make sure the gasket's all good to go. Gasket's pretty easy to get up in there, but I would go ahead and use like some sort of flathead like this, and you can see now it's just way up there in that top corner. So now that we have that and we have the bottom plugged up again, you can go ahead and tighten it back on. Make sure you just hand tighten it, nothing too crazy, and get the essentially, I guess, this plug back in there. So we're good to go. Alright, I literally just hand tighten it. Now we'll just go ahead and get this drain plug, the little breather valve up here. Alright, let's go ahead and just prime the system here. Alright, we can go ahead and throw in a little bit of octane boost. Try to maybe clean that fuel system a little bit. So first off, what I did, just kind of general maintenance, did not work. And now I start breaking out the book. You can either find this online or the link below, but I go straight to the symptom index. Now my symptoms are, I'll start it up. When it's cold, runs perfect. Let it run for a while until the engine gets hot, then let it sit for about 30 minutes to an hour. Try to start it up. Sometimes it won't start at all, and then sometimes it does start up, and then it'll die soon after. So that's kind of the hard start. Long crank, it kind of goes with it, but more so the no start, normal crank. So chart 4, and then I'm also getting a stalls and quit, which is 3. And then I'm getting a surging as well. So if we go to 3, first one is fuel throttle body. 4, okay, it's a little bit different because it's not even starting. It's the ignition system and then fuel throttle body. If we go down to the stalls, hesitate, surge, we go ignition, fuel throttle body. So I kind of went through all of the ignition side, look at the secondary wires, spark plugs look good, coil is within the resistance for the primary and secondary, and then checked the cap and rotor. Everything looked good, and I have a good clean spark even with my spark plug tester. So went to the fuel system section 3H. Let's go ahead and go down there. All right, here's the 3H. So it's kind of breakdown of the fuel system. So we have, just imagine our gas tank right here, then it goes into our low pressure fuel pump, which is right by our water fuel separator. Then it pumps into the water fuel separator where our high pressure fuel pump is. Then it goes up and then goes into the 4 injectors on one side and then turns around and then goes to the 4 injectors on the other side and then goes back in. And if we have extra fuel, it'll either fill up the fuel water separator, or if we have a ton extra, it'll actually bring it back home into the gas tank. And then we can just go step by step here. System integrity check. Does everything look good? Verify that. You know, if there's any kind of gum around the fuel water separator or fuel lines, maybe you're leaking a little bit. All right. And then fuel injector pressure test. Are we getting, is the fuel pressure within specs? I did not have that. I had a 0 fuel pressure on my fuel rail. So that was really nice. I got to skip a bunch of steps. So if 0 or low, go to 3H12, or if high, go to 316. So mine was 0 or really low. When I finally was able to diagnose it during the symptoms, because this was an intermittent problem, I finally was able to diagnose it during the symptom and figured out that I had 0 or low PSI. So I'm going to go straight to 3H12. Go to 3H12, check voltage to pump. Got my voltage regulator, or just check to make sure I had the voltage. And I did. I had more than 10.5 volts. Yes. All right. Go to the 13. Check fuel pump ground. So you just want to connect the ground wire and just make sure you actually have a full resistance there. And I go straight to yes. Boom. Replace fuel pumps. Now I went online and checked with a bunch of people, and the symptom that I have is caused by the low pressure fuel pump. So I didn't replace the high pressure fuel pump, just saved me $200 there, but ended up replacing that low pressure fuel pump, and everything worked great. All right, so we currently got 0 PSI in the system. I got my spark plug tester. We'll go ahead and start everything up. So there goes primes to 20. If I prime it, it keeps coming up. Prime it one more time. 3rd time, there we go. All the way up to 40, looks good. Start her up. Starts up just fine, cold. And we got ourselves a spark. Runs just as it should. Stabilizing right at about 37.5 PSI. Low pressure, we're connected to the low pressure fuel pump right here. I got my gauge. I'll go ahead and cycle it once here. So it jumps up to about 2.5 psi for one click. You can do a second one. And now we're at maybe about 6 or 11 psi. So the first one was about 5. Third time's a charm. Goes all the way up to 20 psi. And you can see it's slowly dropping a little bit. And now it's kind of stagnating. Alright, pretty simple here. We're just going to go ahead and disconnect the connector. And then there's 3 bolts here. 1, 2, 3. And then we'll go on the back side here. Disconnect the fuel, inline fuel. And then we can twist this one off as the last one. All right, we got ourselves a brand new fuel pump here. Two little crimp connectors, fuel pump, instructions, who needs those? Looks like we got ourselves a bracket, some wires, and some extra bolts. Alright, so all you need to do is just press these guys on here like so. Then we'll get the original connector and cut these and crimp the other ones on. So one thing you can do is take the fitting out for the fuel coming in. There's a screen there, and you can see mine's actually pretty clear, so that's good news. Here, obviously, there's the screen, brand spanking new, but hopefully it was the pump, because the screen is not even close to clogged. I would say it's maybe like 5%. It's just tiny little particles on the filter there, so should be looking good. Alright, so I've got my old pump here. I'm going to go ahead and cut the wire. Bring my connector over to the new pump, and you can see I've got a little diagram here. So fuel coming in, the terminal on the left side where the N is the ground, and the out where it goes to the engine is where the battery is. So I just have it oriented the same way. So this is the positive lead and this is the negative lead. Unfortunately, they don't have it stamped anywhere on here, which is kind of annoying, so you would have to have the manual to know that. Actually, yeah, right on the plastic bit, it's got positive and negative right there, so that looks good. Then we'll go ahead and just crimp these 2 connectors on here and call it a day. Just crimp the wires on there, and then I also had to just cut the black tube in half, just because the actual crimp was too thick to have 2 of them. So just cut it in half just to cover the crimp wire. And then now we can put the hot positive on the positive side here. So just like so. And then we can put the negative one. Negative and positive, make sure that's all correct. Here's our positive wire, runs over, and then we've got positive, so we're looking good. Alright, now for just all the thread stuff, I just got some Permatex thread sealant, high temperature. This is good for fuel lines. Make sure you're not using just regular thread tape that you just get for plumbing and stuff, because that will disintegrate and go into your fuel injector and clog your fuel injectors and pumps and all that, so that would not be fun. Alright, got some of the thread sealant on there. Now we can put the connector back on. All right, so first thing is to connect the out, twist it on, and then connect the end fuel line. Connect these three guys with the just the wire holder, and then go ahead and connect the electrical connectors, and then we should be good to go here. So pretty exciting. We can go ahead and get our fuel gauge out here and prime the system, see if it starts. All right, prime the fuel system twice. You can see low pressure fuel pump is working. It's actually working better than the... All right, you can see we're about 24 PSI there. So low pressure fuel system is pressurized, which is good. So we should be able to start her up. All right, so we're on the water and I'm just idling. I'm immediately noticing that I don't have that propeller, kind like the engine, the RPM dies a little bit, and you can kind of hear the propeller like slap back and forth with the transmission. I'm not hearing that. It's really solid. I'm at 160 degrees and 60 PSI on my oil. Everything's looking good on both of my systems here. And then on the low pressure, where the water fuel separator is, I'm reading 38 PSI. And so when I go ahead and increase it, it drops down a little bit. And then right when I come back to idle, it comes back up, which is a good thing. If I go ahead and rev it up, it's gonna should do the same thing here. RPM, and then fuel pressure is coming back up, so that's looking good. It's doing its job, keeping fuel in the system now. But now we gotta wait. I'm gonna probably sit here for about an hour just hanging out, and then I'll start it back up and cruise idle all the way home and see if it does it, because that was my symptom. I was able to start it up, kind of go throughout the day, but for me to actually replicate it, I was able to start it up, coast out for about on idle for about 15 minutes, and then sit for about an hour, and then idle 15 minutes back, and on the way back it would die out, and I believe it's the low pressure fuel pump. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. All right, so now the waiting begins. Been hanging out for about 20 minutes. Look at our fuel pressure, and we're just holding a steady 40 PSI. So that's looking good. That means our fuel system is just staying pressurized, and we're not losing any PSI. So that's kind of ruling out any sort of weird gaskets or seals that may be cracked or something that's causing like a small leak or something. All right, an hour later, we got ourselves about 17 PSI here. Go ahead and start it up. First prime goes all the way up to 40 PSI. That sounds like it's gonna work out just great. Here we go. An hour later and she starts strong. So we'll go ahead and take her for a spin.